Hello and welcome back to the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on this YouTube version of the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all of the updates from the episodes of the podcast, of course, and all the other content on the channel, including, of course, the podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Follow us on social media. I'm at Site PSP on Twitter, PitchsidePod on Instagram, and, of course, join us always for more content. It's episode 117, and, of course, it's the quarterfinal of the Champions League preview here. You are welcome. Just a quick note, I wasn't able to do an episode yesterday, or an African episode for that matter, of course, for technical reasons, and also for coincidentally having an appointment to make yesterday, so it was impossible to really do any sort of content yesterday, of course, but I'm definitely trying to always be on for the podcast at the very least. Let's kick off our episode, of course, and before talking about the Champions League quarterfinal preview, let's get into what happened yesterday in Monday Night Football, and we start from England before we talk about Spain, of course. Let's start from England. Everton drawn against Crystal Palace 1-1, of course, the result that, that meant that Everton are going to be staying at 7th on the table, of course, with 47 points ahead of Tottenham Hotspur, just on goal difference in the table. The goals were scored from James Rodriguez by the, early on in the game between Everton and Crystal Palace, and the equaliser coming in from Michy Batshuayi in the 86th minute, right at the death for Crystal Palace, salvaging a point in the game that we know will keep Crystal Palace really hovering around the mid-table at 12th with 38 points, nicking a great result out of the Goodison Park. And in the other game, of course, the more important, I would say, overall, for the top of the table, West Ham United are top 4 material now, and they beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 3-2. They really were cruising with this game in the first half. West Ham, weren't they? Jesse Lingard is the man of the hour, scoring and assisting for Jared Bowen, scoring the first goal in the 6th minute, the 14th minute, Pablo Fornals, and it looked for all intents and purposes that West Ham are going to be just running through Wolves in this game. Wolves got 2 goals back, DeAndre Dendonka late on in the first half and Fabio Silva in the second half, but it wasn't enough to get any result for the Wolves in this game. And West Ham, of course, now are 4th on the table, above Chelsea with 52 points, after Chelsea, of course, dropped points significantly against West Brom, losing 5-2 at Stamford Bridge. This might happen for West Ham this season under David Moyes, having an excellent season, and they could be rewarded with a top 4 spot, a Champions League spot next season. It's crazy. I mean, the league is still going on, there's still a couple of matches to be played, but certainly it will be a great season for West Ham United, whatever the finish may be, compared to last season. And of course, to close out the Monday Night Football, we go to, La Liga. Of course, we go to Spain as we talk about Barcelona versus Valladolid. And Barcelona, I mean, it was a really exhausting game against Real Valladolid. A 90th minute winner from Ousmane Dembele conceded, or scored in the last minute, means that Barcelona are going to be 1 point behind Atletico Madrid in terms of La Liga table, which certainly is going to be meaning that the CLASICO on Saturday will be just absolute fire when it comes to determining who's going to be, chasing Atletico Madrid. Now, 65 points for Barcelona, 66 for Atletico Madrid after their uninspiring performance against Sevilla, losing points, and Real Madrid, of course, with 63 points, so certainly El Clasico would be, some affair to behold, really, and also Atletico Madrid are probably going to be crossing their fingers that the Clasico ends in a draw, because that's probably the only result that's going to actually help them. As far as they're concerned, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how things are going to be working out in El Clasico. Of course, next round it will be, of course, as I mentioned, El Clasico for Atletico Madrid. It will be, a trip to Betis to face Real Betis on Sunday. So the game is going to be after El Clasico, and definitely, they will be hoping that the result of El Clasico is a draw by then. Let's kick in some Champions League business now, and let's talk about the quarterfinal of the competition, of course, kicking off in the on Tuesday, of course, kicking off today with certainly one of the biggest games of the quarterfinal, one of the biggest ties of that quarterfinal in Real Madrid versus Liverpool. And, a quick information, when you think of Real Madrid and Liverpool, of course, you think of 19 Champions Leagues between the two sides, and of course, you think of, the incredible pedigree that they have in Europe, and you might say to yourself, they must have met, like, at least 12 or 15, 16 times maybe, but no. In fact, they only met 6 times in European football, and that is quite the stat. Like, they only met 6 times in the Champions League. Liverpool won 3 of them, and Real Madrid won 3 of them, so them sharing the spoils exactly the same. The first meeting was in the 1981 final, with Liverpool clinching the title in Rome, and then, of course, Real Madrid and Liverpool met again in the round of 16 in 2008-2009, where Liverpool won both games by an aggregate score of 5-0, and that was quite interesting at the time. For Liverpool, they were a really good side back then. Then, of course, the next one was in Group B of the Champions League in 2014-15, and that was a different story. Real Madrid won both games, with the win in particular coming at Anfield with 3-0 for Real Madrid was quite the turnaround. And of course, the last meeting was the dreaded final of 2018 for the Liverpool fans in Kiev. Of course, the one where Mo Salah missed on the rest of the game after being quote-unquote injured by Ramos. Of course, Liverpool fans, they would only think about that, really, as far as revenge is concerned for this game. However, Jurgen Klopp doesn't really think about that. He insisted that the game is not about the revenge. Jurgen Klopp was really adamant that he didn't like what happened that night, but it was a strange night, but it was long ago. They said they cannot get that feeling back, or that anger, or whatever, so I'm really not trying. Let's face it, it's just media talk. Yes, Jurgen Klopp is going to be saying, oh, we don't want revenge, we don't want this, we don't want that, but definitely they would want that somewhere deep in there. They would want revenge from Real Madrid. Mo Salah would want personal revenge from Ramos, but unfortunately for him, Ramos is missing and is the biggest miss of Real Madrid in this quarterfinal. Liverpool, of course, they already have their list of injuries, so it can't be exactly considered a miss if another player is injured now, because they have already the biggest names on the shelf, at least in the defense in particular, of course, but elsewhere the squad is complete, and this game might be played on some details, really. And if it was with fans, really, and we say that the fans would be there in the Valdebebas, where Real Madrid is going to be playing, or an Anfield, it would be a different story. But certainly with no fans, you cannot expect an atmosphere to be kicking in. You cannot expect some intensity from the crowd to affect the players or affect their psychology. So it's going to be played purely on the pitch. Who's going to be the better team? And both teams had inconsistent seasons. Liverpool for more than one thing, and I think mostly for injuries, because the injuries started a snowball effect that they still feel, I think, to this day. And yes, they had a couple of wins in the Premier League, and not just a couple of wins, but also a couple of clean sheets as well. And that is important to gain confidence out of this game, because had they been leaking goals, there would have been... there are already questions over their defence, because, it is Liverpool this season, and they are really, really weird this season. But there is also, a bit of confidence that, that Liverpool can manage themselves in the game and can keep a clean sheet against the Real Madrid line that, in particular, Karim Benzema is going to be so dynamic and so mobile and so moving of the players that he will play with, whatever a lineup it will stand. It would be Asensio, Vinicius Jr., should he start Rodrigo somewhere? Real Madrid have the options, but Liverpool... should be, I think, more than good to hold themselves against Real Madrid. Another detail probably the game is going to be played upon is certainly the midfield battle, because this one is a bit of debate. Like, in the best of scenarios and the best of the days, I really can see that the Real Madrid midfield are the better of the two. Not exactly consistently better, because certainly we saw the season that, Modric, he's probably consistent, the only consistent player in the three of Casemiro and Kroos. Kroos, ebbing and flowing, dipping in and out of form. Casemiro as well, and I would say he's dipping out of form more than in form. He's not the same Casemiro that we knew for the last 3 or 4 seasons in joining Real Madrid. And also, you have the options of Federico Valverde, who if fit, he will be a great addition late on. He can't be a starter over Casemiro, Modric and Kroos. So Real Madrid's plan, I would say, is going to be pretty easy. Do not allow this game to go into a pacey game. Just like they did against Atlanta, just hold the play, slow the play down. Do not allow Liverpool to get momentum onto the press, because if they do, they're going to be bouncing, and the Real Madrid players and defenders are not going to be that quick to react. I mean, you have Mane, Salah, Firmino, and also I think you have the wild card of Diego Jota, who could be a starter today for Liverpool against Real Madrid, and he's on fire form. Like, he's incredible with Liverpool at the moment. He scored with Portugal, and he picked up just where he left before the injury that he suffered and made him sit on the sidelines for 2 months. In my opinion, I think it's going to be an incredible opportunity for Liverpool to really try and make amends with what happened in 2018 final, and also to have an advantage over Real Madrid. And they have, I think, an automatic one over Real Madrid, because Real Madrid have a CLASICO to think about, a certain game against Barcelona to think about. So it certainly has to be, in the back of the mind of Real Madrid players, that they think about El Clasico. Not more than the game of the Champions League, of course, but I would say they would think about it anyway. They would try and, and put it in the back of their minds, maybe conserve some energy because they still have a second leg, try and get the best that they could out of this leg, and then go to Anfield and see what's going to be happening and see out the tie. Definitely. It will affect the players in a certain way. It will affect how Real Madrid play. Maybe it will hold them back. Maybe it will be a positive. Maybe motivate them. Who knows? I really fancy Liverpool over the 2 legs for some reason, because I don't think that Real Madrid are going to be able to hold the play down in both games against Liverpool. I mean, they have some of the paciest players in counter-attack. In even a normal attack, they still have the support of the fullbacks, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. I mean, the midfield is getting there, really, with the return of Fabinho, and Jurgen Klopp realising that, screw it, let's play with normal centre-halves and get Fabinho back into the midfield. I think it added a little bit more cover, added a little bit more strength to Liverpool's play, and certainly allowed Thiago to get on the ball a little bit more and do what he does best, which is controlling the pace of the game and distributing the ball in the middle and providing the passes, not the final pass, but the telling pass for the individuals up front, of course, whatever they be, Salah, Mane and Firmino, although I really have a strong feeling that Jota should be starting against Real Madrid, and he will be, again, the wild card. His movement is superb. He doesn't move like Firmino does. He doesn't really drop and then roam around waiting for the ball. He doesn't give his back really to the goal. Even if he moves like front goal. Like, he moves looking at the goal. And that is one of the... And he's a smart mover. Like, he knows how to move between the lines. And that could be a real problem for the defenders of Real Madrid, because you assume that it's going to be Nacho and Varane in there somewhere in that trio in the back. You assume that Lucas Vazquez is going to be featuring because there's no Carvajal or Riozola. You would assume that Ferland Mendy, and all of them are not exactly the quickest of players, let's face it. I mean, aside from Vazquez, really, I don't think that the other three have pace in them to count with Salah's movement, Mane's movement, Jota's movement, and, they don't have the intricacy of, small positioning, I would say, to really hold Liverpool down and do not allow them to get into spaces behind them. So overall, I mean, as far as Liverpool are concerned, I think they will try and, try 2 things. First of all, save the centre-halves, because I'm sure they're going to be playing Ozan Kabak and Nathaniel Phillips, and that would be, fine by the standards that Liverpool have set, because they have no primary centre-halves. But if they do, I mean, if Jurgen Klopp thinks about it like this and, pulls Fabinho to the centre-half position, he done himself screwed. Because he's given the battle and he's given the midfield to Real Madrid to control all over the game. And he needs someone like Fabinho in there. He needs him in the middle. We need to see that pressing start with him. We need to see that battle in the midfield starting with him. We need to see him get the balls in the middle and start distributing to Thiago, who would control the pace up front. As far as Real Madrid are concerned, I think they will try and focus on the centre-halves. They'll try to make Benzema, exhaust them, run them amok because of their inexperience, really. And I think this is, for Ozan Kabak in particular, the biggest test he ever had in his career. So I'm sure he will try to, just make it out of their safe, really. I mean, not necessarily clean sheets, because he doesn't seem very probable that they'll keep clean sheets, but certainly he will try and get the least of damage possible out of that game. So overall, it's going to be played on, just a couple of details, really. Who's going to be managing the game better than the other, who's going to be doing it better than the other. I mean, the coach is going to be, looking at this game and analysing it in the best way, will win the leg and win the tie overall, and that should be pretty good for, and Zinedine Zidane, I think. I can trust his management for Real Madrid, but I really can't trust Jurgen Klopp's management for Liverpool. Not because he's a bad coach, but because of the precedents that he set for this season and the way he was setting up his side and the way he was playing with Liverpool. As far as prediction is concerned, I don't think that Liverpool are going to be underdogs in here. I think they're going to go over in the two legs situation, but as far as this first leg is concerned, maybe a draw, I would say, or even a tight victory for either side. But I fancy Liverpool to have a tight 2-1 victory away from home. They would concede, yes, because of the inexperience of the centre-halves against someone like Benzema. But I would say that, Liverpool are going to be having enough pace, enough press, enough smart movement to really damage Real Madrid's backline and score a couple of goals. Let's turn our attention now to the second quarterfinal that's going to be taking place on Tuesday, of course, and it is Manchester City versus Borussia Dortmund, and this has to be, the biggest story over this, I think, has to be Erling Haaland and the potential exhibition in front of his next club, I would say. Manchester City, it's certainly, the bid talking of, the rumoured deals, rumoured round-up talk from Mino Raiola, who went to Barcelona, went to Madrid, and went to England, and talked to certain representatives of some clubs about Erling Haaland. It looks like City, Pep Guardiola wrote City off this and said that we're not signing a striker, and if they manage to get Haaland in the summer, that would be the biggest line in football, I would say. But certainly, it is the biggest story, I think, the biggest overarching story over the game itself, I think, and over the importance of the game itself. And certainly, if Erling Haaland manages to make a good showing against Manchester City, it will be more of an incentive for Manchester City to get, on their bank account and try to buy Erling Haaland in the summer with as much money as Dortmund want, which is, of course, the 180 million euros. This game also doesn't have a lot of history behind it. Like, they only met twice in the Champions League. They drawn 1-1, and Borussia Dortmund managed to defeat them 1-0. Of course, in the second match in group stages. Of course, that group. In the 2012-2013 Champions League, good times really for that Champions League. The group was featuring them, Borussia Dortmund, Man City, Ajax, and Real Madrid. That was quite the group in the Champions League, and of course, we all know what happened next. Man City didn't get out of those group stages, of course. They were ousted by Real Madrid, and Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund got through, and of course the rest is history, because that year Dortmund managed to beat Real Madrid in the semis and also feature in the final of the Champions League against Bayern Munich in 2013. This game, I think, has, it has less intrigue than the Real Madrid-Liverpool tie, because it looks like the balance is quite tilted towards Manchester City. They seem like the strongest. The favourites. They're really performing well in the league, making probably the perfect rotation of their squad and their squad system really in the Champions League, in the Premier League as well. The resting players were needed. The players really understood this, I think, from Guardiola, that they need the rest. They need to, not play all the games. There's no player, I think, in Man City that played the full minutes or played the whole. I think probably aside from Edison, the goalkeeper, probably, not a lot of players have, managed to make 40-50 games a season for Manchester City, despite the congested schedule and the international breaks in between. Man City are doing it super well, and I think the break that they have, or the sort of the break that they have early on in the season when they had an outbreak of COVID, I think helped them set themselves up really well. Probably Guardiola had a chance to refocus and reorganise his side And the results of that reorganisation are really, really visible for everyone to see. And despite the middling start of the season, I'm not going to say bad, but it was middling start of the season, definitely they stomped their authority over the Premier League. They are favourites to win the Champions League. They could win a quadruple, and that may be a wild dream for Manchester City. Some even say that it won't happen, really, because if it's too much of an ask from Pep Guardiola's side. But he won a triple. He won a treble in England, of course, so it's not going to be exactly impossible to add the Champions League to it, but it needs a little bit more of a hard work, it needs a bit of more focus, and, you know, the internet community is going to be seeing the quarterfinal of the Champions League where Man City is, and saying, this is the time where Guardiola is going to be bottling it, this is the time where Guardiola overthinks his games and try and manage new tactics, and it doesn't exactly work like that. And I agree, it doesn't work like that. And Guardiola tried to overthink it 4 times before, and in the 4 times he went out of the Champions League. And, you know, I think there's a trend in the in the Champions League eliminations for Guardiola. I mean, at the very least, you know, there's 2 teams that went to the final that eliminated City, which are called Liverpool and Tottenham. And then, of course, you have Lyon and Monaco, the French teams, who eliminated them in the round of 16, really, in the first time, you know, Guardiola, you know, played the Champions League knockout stages with City. There's Monaco played them, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Lyon, and it is quite an interesting situation, really, for Manchester City. You know, to try and get over the quarterfinal stage, because that is where they failed themselves and failed their fans for the last couple of years. And it seems like an easy opportunity to do that. I mean, it was an easy tie against Gladbach in the round of 16, winning both games 2-0, not exhausting themselves a lot, playing to first gear, really. But I think they would need more than that against Borussia Dortmund. Yes, Borussia Dortmund might not have the best of seasons in the Bundesliga, and certainly they will be out of the spots of the Champions League. They will have no sort of luck or sort of chance in getting into the Champions League spots next season. But they still have enough of a good side to bother Man City. I'm not going to say beat them overall or get through over 2 legs, although that still could happen, really. But certainly I don't see Borussia Dortmund, dominating City or having a 50-50 game with City. It's going to be somewhat of the template of the Leicester City game, where Man City are going to be dominating. Maybe Borussia Dortmund will try to sneak in there, but they will need a solid defence. And I don't think that they have the most solid of defences, Borussia Dortmund, at the moment. Even with the experience of Hummels, I mean, the defensive organism for Borussia Dortmund doesn't exactly work this well, and I don't think they have the best of midfields at the moment, with the absence of Axel Witsel in particular, and forced to play Emre Can at the back for some reason, and, playing with so much youth, I think, up front, that, it doesn't have the enough experience in it, playing with the likes of Jude Bellingham, Mahmoud Dahoud, of course, Thorgan Hazard, Jadon Sancho, he's injured at the moment, and of course Erling Haaland. There's so much youth in Borussia Dortmund, but there's not so much experience to count from. Not so much experience to really set Dortmund really well on the pitch and try to make them look like an incredible team, in front of Manchester City. I think that's going to be the model of the game, in my opinion. It's going to be Manchester City dominating, Borussia Dortmund trying to sit back, maybe trying to pickpocket moments behind the Manchester City defence, which I think that could happen, but it would need so much intensity, and it needs a good pressing, I think, from the Dortmund players. They have the youth, I think they have the freshness to do that, and we saw that against Sevilla. They did that really, really well, despite conceding a couple of goals in both games, but I think they sat deep pretty well, and they pressured Sevilla pretty well in the round of 16. The Manchester City quality, I think, is another level, though, for them, and it will be probably even harder to do so without conceding goal in the first 30 minutes of the game, because you assume Man City are going to be starting strong out of the blocks, maybe try and kill the game dead quickly and try to reserve that energy for other games down the line, or for the second leg. As for Dortmund, get out of the game and the Etihad with the best result possible, with the least of damages, and they will try and see out the game in the second leg, and will try and make it, a pretty even affair leading into the second leg in the Signal Iduna Park next midweek. As far as prediction are concerned, again, I fancy Man City winning. I really have 10%, maybe 20% chance for Dortmund to win the tie over the two legs. But in particular, in Etihad, I would say City winning. Maybe by 3 goals to 1 would be a perfect result, I would say, for Man City in this tie. And, it would be a result that might open some doors for Borussia Dortmund, but certainly those doors could be shut down pretty quickly if Man City went to overdrive and just managed to score 4 or 5 goals against them. That's it from me for this episode. Of course, I was with HD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all of the updates from these podcasts or episodes you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And of course, follow us on social media, sign up PSP on Twitter, on Instagram. Check out the previous episodes on the channel, of course, and of course, join us for more. You are welcome. I was with HD of the PSP, and goodbye.